All right, we're going back in time today, back to the 13th century, to the Mongol Empire. You guys sent in some really cool stuff on their Yam system. It was this communication network, and it helped them rule, well, a huge part of the world, basically.
Mm.
Now, I know what you're thinking. Ancient history. What's that got to do with me?
But stick with us because the stuff we're about to dig into, well, it's surprisingly relevant to how we communicate today, even. How we build systems today. I've got an expert here to help us break it all down. Welcome. I'm already kind of blown away by this whole thing. I mean, messages traveling hundreds of miles in a matter of days back then. No smartphones, no internet, just like pure ingenuity. What's the first thing that jumps out at you?
You know, it's fascinating. This system, it didn't come from some big tech breakthrough or anything. It was a solution to a really, really big problem. Genghis Khan, the founder of the Mongol Empire, he just conquered this massive amount of territory. And the traditional ways of communicating, they just couldn't keep up. He needed a way to stay in control, to coordinate his armies, and to govern effectively across, well, vast distances. So, the Yam system, it was born out of necessity then,
Yeah.
but it wasn't just about speed, was it? I'm seeing a lot about how reliable this thing was, too.
Oh, reliability. Absolutely essential. Imagine trying to rule an empire where messages could get lost or delayed or even tampered with. The Yam system, it had to be dependable. And that's where the whole structure comes in. Picture it, okay? Like a chain of relay stations, they called them Yam posts, stretching all across the empire, these posts, strategically placed along the most important routes. And they were stocked, too. Fresh horses, supplies, messengers ready to go, like at a moment's notice.
Okay, so I'm picturing like a super efficient ancient pony express, basically. But how does this, I don't know, how does this relate to how we build systems today?
Yeah.
We're not relying on horses anymore, right?
The principles, though, they're surprisingly similar. Think about scalability for a second. The ability of a system to handle growth and change.
Without completely falling
Yeah.
apart, right? Well, the YAM system was designed to be modular, which basically means it could expand easily to cover new territory. Each YAM post, it was like its own self-contained unit, and you could just, replicate it, add it to the network as needed. And that same principle, it applies to modern networks. The internet, even a big company's communication system, internal one, they need to be able to scale up or down even without losing that reliability.
Makes sense. But how did they make sure the messages actually got through? Was it just like trusting the messengers to do their thing?
Trust was definitely a factor. But the Mongols, they also built in some serious accountability measures. Strict protocols for the messengers, serious penalties for messing up, like negligence, or tampering with messages. That way they made sure that the information was accurate, kept its integrity, and it reinforced how reliable the whole system was. So it's like they understood back then that reliability wasn't just about speed. It was also about building trust in the system itself.
Exactly. Think about how important trust is now in our digital age. We rely on online platforms for everything. Banking, communication, shopping. If we don't trust those systems to be secure and reliable, well, the whole thing falls apart, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'm starting to see the connection here. So we've got speed, reliability, scalability.
Yeah.
That's what made this system so revolutionary.
Those were huge, definitely. But there's one more thing I find super interesting, the paisa. It was this special medallion that messengers would carry, gave them access to resources, proved their authority.
So like an ancient security pass, what was so special about it?
It was a symbol, really, of authority and a form of authentication, too. It helped prevent people from tampering with messages, made sure only authorized people were relaying the information. Think of it like a very early version of the security measures we use today, online, to protect sensitive data.
It's amazing, isn't it, how they thought of that back then? So we've got speed, reliability, scalability, and security, all super important ingredients for any communication system, even today. But how did they manage to coordinate all of this across this huge empire? So diverse, too.
Well, that's where things get really interesting. They used a decentralized approach.
Wait, decentralized? I thought this was an empire ruled by, a Khan. How does that work?
It's a bit of a paradox, actually. I mean, Genghis Khan, he was definitely in charge, ultimate authority. But he must have known, that a system this big, the Yam system, you couldn't micromanage it, not from the top down. So station managers, they had power. They could make decisions. Based on what was happening right there, the conditions they were facing, they could adapt to unexpected things without having to wait for orders from the capital.
Okay, so it's like this balance. Centralized authority, but decisions being made all over.
Hmm.
How did that work, like on a day-to-day basis?
All right, picture this. A messenger shows up at a station, and he's got news. There's a storm a bad one, blocking the main route. Now, instead of just waiting around for instructions, the station manager, he could just decide, okay, we're rerouting this guy. Send him on a secondary path. Make sure that message gets where it needs to go. That flexibility, it was key. Kept the whole system running smoothly and responsive, too.
So it's not just about rules then. It's about giving people the power to make smart decisions right there on the ground, kind of like what we call agile these days in companies.
Exactly. Think about a company like, say, Netflix. They've got teams all over, making shows, movies, making decisions based on what they know about their local markets. That way of working, decentralized, it makes them super responsive. Your preferences change. Boom, they can adapt. Got to stay ahead in that industry. It's competitive.
So we're getting like a blueprint almost for how to structure organizations today from this ancient system. What else can we learn from how they ran this massive network?
I think one of the biggest things is clear roles and responsibilities. In the Yam system, everyone knew their job, and they were accountable. Messengers, get the message there safely and quickly. Station managers, keep the post running, make those routing decisions. And then you had regional supervisors. They were overseeing the whole thing, their section of the network.
And that clarity, that was what kept everything running smoothly.
Mhm.
It's like trying to build a house, but no one knows who's the architect, who's the carpenter, who's the electrician.
Precisely. When things are unclear, when no one's really responsible for anything, communication breaks down. Guaranteed. And then you get delays, mistakes, frustration. It just undermines the whole thing, whatever system or organization you're talking about.
It's like those epic fails you see online. Companies getting orders messed up, sending packages to the wrong place. Seems like a lot of that comes down to communication problems, doesn't it?
Totally. The Yam system, it's a reminder. Good communication, it's not just about the tech, it's about people and processes. Clear roles, defined responsibilities, good procedures for handling information. That's how you minimize errors. Make sure messages get to the right people at the right time.
I feel like we're finding some timeless principles here about communication.
Absolutely. The Mongols, they didn't have smartphones or email, but they knew how important clear communication was. Defined roles, efficient processes, those principles, just as important in an office today as they were back then on the Mongolian steppes.
So we've got speed, reliability, decentralization, clear roles. What about security? Was that a big deal in the Yam system?
Oh, absolutely. Paramount. We already talked about the PESA, right? That was like their authentication. But they had other security measures, too. They'd often encode the messages, so if someone unauthorized got their hands on it, they couldn't understand it. And the messengers, they traveled in groups. Protection, from bandits or spies.
Multi-layered approach, just like what we do today with our digital stuff.
Right. They knew security wasn't just about protecting the physical message. It was about protecting the information inside it. That principle, even more crucial now, data breaches, cyber attacks, it's a constant threat.
I mean, it's just incredible to think about. These ancient systems, they had to deal with the challenges that we still face today, even though technology is completely different.
It's what makes studying history so interesting, isn't it? You see how humans have tackled these fundamental problems across time, across cultures. And the solutions they came up with, they might seem simple at first, but they were often very sophisticated. And we can learn from them, apply those lessons to our own challenges today.
It's like we've made a checklist for how to build a super strong communication system. We've got speed, reliability, decentralization, clear roles, security.
That's a great way to put it. But there's one more thing, one crucial aspect of the Yam system we haven't really touched on. Its ability to adapt, to evolve. And that's where we'll pick up in part 3.
We're back, diving deep into the Mongol Empire's Yam system. It's kind of wild. We're talking about communication from the 13th century, and yet so much of it connects to how we do things today.
Some challenges, they just never go away, do they? And the Yam system, I think one of the biggest lessons is its adaptability, how it could change, evolve in a world that's always in flux,
Okay, so we talked about how fast it was, reliable,
Yep.
secure, decisions being made locally, all super advanced for the time. But how did they actually build in that adaptability? Did they have a crystal ball or something, predict the future?
I wish. But what they did have was a deep understanding of their world. And they were willing to learn from their experiences. The Yam system, it wasn't static. It didn't just stay the same. They refined it, improved it, based on what they heard from the people using it, the messengers, the station managers, the supervisors.
So continuous improvement. Centuries before it became a buzzword, I'm picturing a suggestion box at each Yam station. How can we make your message go even faster?
Maybe not a suggestion box, but you get the idea. They knew. Even the best system, you can always make it better. They wanted feedback. They tried different things. And if something wasn't working, they changed it.
It's like companies today, obsessed with data and analytics, trying to figure out what works, what doesn't. The Mongols were doing that back then, just without, spreadsheets and algorithms and all that.
Exactly. They understood that data mattered, even in its simplest form. Reports from messengers, observations from the station managers. Crucial for making smart decisions about how to adapt.
Okay, so they got that feedback, but did they just make small tweaks? Or were they open to bigger changes, more radical stuff?
They were surprisingly open to new technology, new ideas, especially when they saw a chance to make things more efficient or effective. Like, let's say they found a new way to ride horses or a better way to breed them. They'd incorporate that into the Yam system, no hesitation.
So it wasn't just about inventing something totally new. It was about seeing what already worked somewhere else and adapting it. Don't reinvent the wheel, just make it roll better, right?
Exactly. And that's a great lesson for us today. Sometimes the best solutions are already out there. We just have to see them and figure out how to use them for our own problems.
We talked before about how decentralized the Yam system was.
Yes.
Station managers, they had a lot of autonomy. Did that help them adapt too?
Oh, definitely. Decentralization, it made the system more responsive, that's for sure. But it also allowed for experimentation at the local level. Station managers, they could try new things, see what worked, and then share their successes with everyone else.
Like a network of, I don't know, mini innovation labs,
Yeah.
each one contributing to the whole system. That's pretty cool.
It is, and it shows how powerful it can be to give people the power to be creative, to own their work. When people feel safe to experiment, to learn from their mistakes, that's when you get real innovation.
It seems like today, everyone's obsessed with speed, efficiency, always looking for that hack, the shortcut. But the Yam system, it's a good reminder. Real adaptability, it's not just about moving fast. It's about being open to new ideas, learning from what you've done, always looking for ways to improve.
And it's about knowing that things change. The Mongols, they understood that. Their world was always shifting, so they built a system that could handle those changes, even evolve with them. That's a lesson that's, well, maybe more important than ever today. Our world is changing so fast, too.
So wrapping up this deep dive, what's the one big thing our listeners should take away about adaptability?
Don't be afraid of change. Experiment. Learn from your mistakes. Always be looking for new ideas, new ways of doing things. It doesn't matter what you're doing. Running a company, leading a team, or just living your life. Being able to adapt, that's how you succeed. In a world that never stands still.
This has been a really cool journey, exploring the Yam system and finding these hidden lessons inside it. Lessons for today, even. Speed, reliability, security, decentralization, and finally, adaptability. The Mongols, they built something truly amazing.
And even though their empire is long gone, what they did, the principles they followed, those are still relevant.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you enjoyed it, learned something new, maybe even found some ideas you can use in your own life. Until next time, keep learning, keep innovating. And remember, the only thing that's constant is change.